Let's play a little fact or fluke as it relates to some statistical realities, maybe anomalies from the past football season. We'll start with Dak Prescott, the guy who actually had the most interceptions in the NFL last year with 15. There's been a lot of talk about fixing that, a lot of tipped balls, a lot of issues there. Question is where Dak fits among the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Do you think he's going to be able to show that last year was a fluke? He had 10 in 2021, 50% increase last year. Where do you think it goes this year?
I'm going to say that it's fluke, that, last year was fluky. It's too big of a talking point. First off, to think that, like, Dak Prescott's going to be focused on taking care of the ball better. I think this is a subject, I think what makes it bad last year is Dak did it in some really big moments. That was a big thing. And then he didn't even play the full slate of the schedule, and he still led the NFL in interceptions. And that's where, the rubber's got to meet the road there. He's got to be better, right, for what he is, what he's being paid, the Dallas Cowboys, what they're expecting out of him. He knows that too. But at the same time, I don't want it to go down to like 6 or 7. I know that, like you've heard me say. There's a point where you go, wait, that's too careful, and you're doing an injustice to your team. Yeah, great, you threw an
Aaron
interception.
Rodgers. It's Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, being too careful.
Yeah, the team that the guy that led the league in interceptions 2 years ago won the Super Bowl. To the point of that, and Matthew Stafford. So there is a fine line of aggressive and reckless, and Dak Prescott's just got to get a little bit better in that department.
I just think it's important not to even let it get in your head because you don't want to be holding back. Hey, that guy's open. Last year I would have made the throw. This year I'm not going to make the throw.
Right.
Maybe I'm going to run it, and I get myself injured while I run it because I didn't want to throw it because I didn't want another interception to give all the trolls out there talking points. You just have to forget about it. You can't think about it. Just go play the game, and whatever happens with the interceptions happens. That's the key. And I feel like there's been so much discussion about it. It's going to be a real challenge for Dak Prescott to put it behind him. I tend to agree with you, though. Let's call it a fluke, but if it goes too far the other way, it may hurt the rest of the offense. Geno Smith had an NFL high 69.2 completion percentage last season. Is that fact or is that fluke?
I think that's fact. I mean, again, I'm not saying that he's definitely going to go for 69.2 again or 71, but I think he's going to be right there in that ballpark, right? I don't expect it to fall off. If he throws for 67.8% or whatever, I'll look at it to be, the same type of year. So that's where I look at this and go, no, Geno Smith's talent is real. It is. And the Seattle Seahawks, to me, are one of those teams like where we look at in the NFC right now, we know who the big three are. We all know. Yeah, the Eagles are king. The 49ers are second. And then you got the Cowboys. Who's that fourth team? Seattle's one of those teams I look at to go, they could be that fourth team. With that guy at quarterback, those receivers, the young offensive line, the running backs they got, what they're doing on defense, I think Seattle's the type of team in Geno Smith. I think this is fact. I think they could be a real pain in the butt this year for teams in the NFC.
And big difference. No open competition this year for the quarterback job in Seattle. He's not having his reps diluted. He's going to be more prepared for week 1 than he was last year. Psychologically, it's going to be a different vibe. He's got the big contract, although we all know it's a 1-year deal if the Seahawks want it to be. And Drew Lock is back. So Drew Lock is still pushing him. And we know from experience, look at what they did back in 2012 when Matt Flynn got all the money and Russell Wilson was the backup. They went with Russell Wilson. So, if by some fluke, and I think it would be a fluke, Geno Smith would crater in his performances and Drew Lock would rise past him, Pete Carroll will not hesitate to put Drew Lock under center if it comes down to it. So that puts more pressure. Even though Geno Smith is quote-unquote proven relative to last year, I think he still feels like he has things to prove, which will make him more likely to have a big year.
Yeah, agree with that. He can't feel warm and cozy. And like we talked about with his contract when he signed that early in the offseason, it's basically a 1-year deal with some fluff. So, yeah, he better be on his P's and Q's and cross his T's and dot his I's and do all that. And, of course, there's expectations there. With Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, and, Kenneth Walker at running back, then, you got some explosive people right there. And we're going to be expecting some explosive plays and some big offense from Seattle. And, I think Geno will take off right where he left off last year.
Boy, for a team that made its way with defense and running game, they're loaded at receiver.
Yes, they are.
And they love Jackson Smith and Jigba. And if he has the kind of impact that, you see some of the quotes coming out of camp and all the things he can do, and he can do it all. Tyler Lockett was gushing about him the other day.
The buzz is there.
That is a hell of a trio.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a trio. And there's always that guy every year.
Right.
And there's more than one. But there are guys where there's that buzz.
Yeah.
And there's definitely buzz with him.
Yeah.
And that would be huge. Huge. What it would do for that passing game, what it would do for that team. And you're right. They're in that cut just below 49ers and Eagles. And injuries, something happens here, something happens there. You win a game you shouldn't have won. You lose a game you shouldn't have lost. And the next thing you know, the Seahawks are in position to maybe even win the division. Or maybe it comes down to Week 18 like it did a couple of years ago when it was Seahawks 49ers on Sunday Night Football to wrap the year. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.